Hey folks, pull up a chair because I've got a story that'll make you rethink ever buying a house in one of those fancy HOA neighborhoods. Willow Creek Estates looked like the American dream when I moved in 5 years ago. Pristine streets lined with identical beige McMansions, kids on bikes, flags waving gently in the breeze, and every lawn so perfect it could win a magazine cover. But beneath that polished surface lurked the real rulers, the Homeowners Association, and at the helm was Carol Kensington, our very own suburban dictator in pearl necklaces and designer pastels. She'd smile at the block parties like a gracious hostess, but cross her, and you'd feel the wrath of a woman who treated community standards like her personal holy war. And the poor soul who ended up in her crosshairs? None other than our local sheriff, Ryan Harlan. Ryan lived on the edge lot he'd inherited from his late wife Sarah's family. A bigger slice with that old wooden fence that had character, a trusty pickup truck parked out front instead of some leased luxury SUV, and a small shed where he tinkered on weekends. It wasn't an eyesore, it was just real. In a sea of cookie-cutter perfection, it stood out like an honest face at a Botox convention. Ryan was the quiet type after long shifts keeping the county safe. Widowed young, raising two kids who missed their mom something fierce, he just wanted peace at home. No drama, no spotlight. He never flaunted the badge, never threw his weight around. He mowed his lawn on Saturdays, waved to neighbors, and kept his head down. But Carol? She couldn't stand anything that didn't fit her vision of elevating property values. It started small, like these things always do in these so-called utopias. One morning Ryan found a crisp, white envelope tucked into his mailbox. No stamp, just violation notice in bold letters. Inside, a typed rant about his fence being non-compliant with aesthetic harmony guidelines and how it was dragging down the entire community's curb appeal. Ryan chuckled at first, shook his head, and tossed it in the recycle bin. Not my circus, he muttered to himself while sipping coffee on the porch. But the notes kept coming, weekly at first, then every few days. Carol's handwriting got sharper, her passive-aggressive tone dripping with that fake politeness these types love. Dear neighbor, one read, we all cherish the pristine image of Willow Creek. Your rustic elements are an unfortunate distraction. Please remedy immediately or face escalating fines. Ryan stayed patient. He was the guy who'd talked down armed suspects without raising his voice. A HOA Karen wasn't going to rattle him. He started a little folder in his desk, dates, photos of the fence, copies of every letter. Just in case. The neighbors noticed the tension building. Mrs. Thompson across the street started averting her eyes when Ryan waved. The PDA moms at the community pool whispered about that sheriff guy who refuses to conform. Carol had them all spooked, feeding the rumor mill that Ryan's place was hurting resale prices. Kids at school even asked Ryan's daughter if her dad was the weird one with the ugly fence. It stung. Ryan saw his kids' faces at dinner, the way they pushed food around their plates. Dad, why does everyone hate our house? His boy asked one night. Ryan ruffled his hair and lied with a smile. It's just grown-up nonsense, buddy. We'll be fine. But inside, the anger simmered. He loved that land, Sarah's laughter echoing there on summer evenings, the kids learning to ride bikes on that very grass. Carol wasn't just nitpicking a fence. She was chipping away at the last piece of family Ryan had left. Still, he waited, watched, documented every petty move. Little did Carol know, the quiet sheriff was already 3 steps ahead. Weeks turned into a slow-burn nightmare that had the whole street buzzing behind closed blinds. Carol didn't stop at notes. Oh no, she escalated like the control freak she was. At the monthly HOA meeting in the clubhouse, you know, the one with the free coffee and those sad little cookies, she stood at the podium in her power suit, microphone in hand, and made Ryan's fence the main event. Folks, we cannot allow one holdout to undermine everything we've built here, she declared, voice sweet as poison ivy. Property values are at stake. Think of your investments. The room nodded like bobbleheads, afraid to disagree. Ryan sat in the back row, arms crossed, badge hidden under a flannel shirt. He didn't interrupt. Just took notes on his phone, timestamps, who clapped the loudest. After the meeting, fines started rolling in. $250 here for unsightly vehicle visibility, $500 there for fence noncompliance. Ryan paid them without a word, but each check he wrote felt like handing Carol another trophy. The gossip mill kicked into overdrive. "I heard he's selling soon anyway," one neighbor muttered at the mailbox cluster. "Carol says his truck lowers our ratings on those real estate apps." Ryan overheard it all, but kept his cool, tipping his hat like nothing happened. "Morning, folks," he'd say, voice steady as ever. Inside, though, the isolation hit hard. Sarah's old friends stopped dropping by. His kids came home from school with questions about why Mrs. Kensington hates us. The emotional toll was real. Ryan lying awake nights, staring at the ceiling, wondering if moving would be easier. But no, this was Sarah's legacy. He wasn't handing it over to some pearl-clutching tyrant. Then came the for sale sign stunt that flipped the switch from annoying to outright malicious. One crisp Tuesday morning, Ryan stepped outside for his coffee, and there it was, a professional realtor sign hammered into his front yard. For sale by owner, motivated seller, with Carol's contact info listed as the listing agent. Ryan's blood ran cold. He yanked it out of the ground so hard the post snapped, then marched straight to his computer. A quick call to the real estate company on the sign, and the agent on the other end sounded mortified. A woman named Carol said she was the owner, desperate to sell because of personal issues. She even sent fake paperwork. Ryan stayed calm on the phone, thanked the guy, and hung up. But now he had proof, documented impersonation. He added it to his growing file, photos timestamped, call logs saved. The satire of it all wasn't lost on him. Here was Carol, preaching community harmony, while trying to steal a man's home through fraud. Neighbors saw the sign come down, but said nothing. They were too busy pretending everything was still perfect. Ryan's smart payback was brewing quietly. He started casual conversations at the grocery store. "Hey, heard Carol's been busy with listings?" Planting seeds without saying a word against the rules. Carol's kingdom was cracking, but she didn't know it yet. She doubled down, leaving voicemails dripping with condescension. "Ryan, darling, this is for your own good. That fence is an embarrassment to us all." Ryan listened to each one, saved them, and smiled that slow sheriff smile. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. You could feel the neighborhood holding its breath, wondering how far this HOA queen would push before something snapped. Ryan was ready. He'd been ready since day one. The drama hit a boiling point when Carol decided to bring in reinforcements. Her entitled son, Derek, fresh out of college, and convinced the world owed him a mansion. One Saturday afternoon, Ryan was out front replacing a loose board on that offensive fence when Carol's luxury SUV rolled up like she owned the street. She stepped out in full Karen regalia, sunglasses perched on her head, clipboard in hand, trailed by Derek, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Ryan, this is it," Carol announced loud enough for half the block to hear. "Derek needs a starter home with real potential. Your little setup here has good bones once we tear down that eyesore fence and the shed. We'll build something magnificent that actually matches the neighborhood." Ryan leaned on his hammer, tipping his hat with that signature calm. "Ma'am, this is my property. Not part of your HOA. You're trespassing." Carol waved him off like he was a fly. "Details, details. The association has spoken. Property values demand action." Derek shifted uncomfortably, muttering, "Mom, this is weird. He lives here." But Carol snapped, "Hush, dear. This man is just stubborn. We'll handle it." Ryan didn't yell. He didn't need to. He pulled out his phone and started recording openly. "For my records," he said with a wink. Carol's face flushed that signature shade of entitled rage. She stormed off, but not before muttering about taking legal steps. That was the moment the twist hit like a thunderclap. Later that week, one of the HOA board members, a tired accountant named Linda who'd had enough of Carol's bullying, knocked on Ryan's door after dark. "I shouldn't be here," she whispered, handing over a flash drive. "But Carol's been skimming HOA dues for her own backyard renovation. Unpermitted pool addition too. Exactly the rules she fines everyone else for. And she tried this same fake sale trick on the Millers last year before they sold cheap and fled." Ryan plugged it in later. There it was, emails, bank transfers, photos of Carol's illegal upgrades hidden behind her perfect hedges. Irony, so thick you could taste it. This self-proclaimed guardian of standards was the biggest violator of all. Ryan's folder was now a full-blown case file. He had leverage that could topple her little empire overnight. But he waited, patient as ever. Let her keep digging her own grave. The neighborhood gossip hit fever pitch. Whispers that Ryan was fighting back spread like wildfire. But Carol doubled down, rallying her loyalists with emails about protecting our investment. Ryan's kids felt the shift too. Suddenly classmates were nicer, like the tide was turning. He sat them down one night. Sometimes the loudest voices aren't the right ones. We just stay true. The emotional weight lifted a bit for Ryan. He wasn't alone anymore. But Carol? She was blind to it all, her ego too big to see the cliff ahead. She scheduled another emergency meeting, prepared to vote Ryan out of compliance permanently. Little did she know, the sheriff had every receipt. The stage was set for her spectacular fall, and the whole street was about to watch. Tension in Willow Creek Estates was thicker than the humid Texas air by the time Carol made her boldest move yet. She showed up unannounced again, this time with Derek and a different realtor in tow, clipboard ready like she was closing a deal. "We've decided to move forward," she announced from Ryan's driveway, voice carrying to every nosy neighbor peeking through blinds. "The association has approved a special assessment to acquire non-compliant properties for the greater good." Ryan stepped out, arms crossed, kids safely inside. "Carol, this ends now. Leave my land." She laughed that fake, high-pitched Karen cackle. "Oh, Ryan, you're still here? We listed it properly this time. Derek's ready to build." The realtor looked confused until Ryan calmly showed his folder, every forged document, every illegal fine, the recordings. "This is fraud," he said evenly. "And trespassing." Carol's face twisted. "You're threatening me. On my listing." She whipped out her phone, dialing with shaking fingers. 911, yes. "There's a hostile vagrant refusing to leave my property. He's dangerous, looks armed even. Send officers now." Ryan just stood there, that patient sheriff stare never wavering. 10 minutes later, a patrol car rolled up. Deputy Mark stepped out, took one look, and froze. "Sheriff Harlan? What the—" Carol's jaw dropped like a cartoon anvil. Her triumphant smirk evaporated into pure panic. "Sheriff? You're—" "The sheriff." Derek buried his face in his hands. "Mom, I told you." Mark barely hid his grin. "Ma'am, you just filed a false report on the county sheriff after trespassing and attempting fraud. The cuffs didn't come out. Not yet, but the citations flew. False police report, trespassing, impersonating a property owner." Carol stammered excuses that sounded as hollow as her community standards. The realtor bolted. Neighbors started filming from windows, whispers turning to outright cheers. Ryan finally spoke, voice low but carrying that quiet authority. "Carol, you've spent months terrorizing me over a fence. Turns out the real eyesore was your abuse of power." The payoff hit like sweet justice served ice cold. Word spread faster than Carol's violation notices ever did. By evening, the HOA board called an emergency vote. Carol was out, stripped of her title amid gasps and side-eyes. Her house suddenly got tagged with its own violation notices from the new board. She avoided eye contact at the grocery store, diving into aisles like a guilty kid. The neighborhood breathed again. Ryan's fence stayed right where it was, a badge of honor now. Kids waved freely. Even the lawn seemed a little less perfect, a little more human. Sometimes the quiet guy with the old wooden fence is the one holding the real power. And in Willow Creek Estates, justice didn't wear pearls. It wore a badge and enjoyed coffee on a porch that finally felt like home again. The aftermath in Willow Creek Estates was the kind of satisfying closure that makes you want to stand up and slow clap. Carol's empire crumbled faster than her fake eyelashes in the Texas heat. The citation stuck, false report, attempted fraud, even a civil suit from Ryan's quiet lawyer that hit her wallet where it hurt most. She lost the presidency in a landslide vote that felt more like a public stoning than a meeting. Neighbors who'd nodded along for months suddenly found their voices. "We always knew she was out of line," they said at the next block party, as if they hadn't been her loyal sheep. Ryan just smiled that calm sheriff smile and passed the potato salad. His kids thrived. No more playground whispers, just normal bike rides past that now iconic fence. The folder Ryan had kept? It became legend in sheriff's department coffee breaks. Deputy Mark loved retelling it. "Boss, You should have seen her face when I said Sheriff Harlan. Dark humor rippled through the community too. Someone started a group chat meme page called Carol's Fence Fails, with screenshots of her old violation letters. Property values? Ironically, they climbed once the tyrant was gone. Turns out people prefer actual neighbors over mini dictators. Ryan never gloated. He didn't need to. The lesson hung in the air like the smell of fresh-cut grass. HOA Karens can preach harmony all they want, but when they target the wrong quiet guy, especially one who collects evidence like it's his job, their little kingdoms come crashing down. The subdivision felt freer, lawns a touch messier, conversations a bit louder and realer. Ryan sat on his porch most evenings now, watching the sunset paint his rustic fence gold. Sarah would have loved it. Told you we'd be fine, he whispered to the empty swing beside him. And in the end, that's what made the whole saga so deliciously hahi. The power-hungry queen who tried to steal a family's legacy with forged signs and fake 911 calls got exactly what she deserved. Public humiliation, lost status, and a neighborhood that finally saw her for the controlling fraud she always was. Folks, if there's one takeaway from this wild ride in Willow Creek Estates, it's this: don't mess with the sheriff's fence. Or his patience. Because when the badge comes out, the drama ends. And the justice begins. Thanks for listening to the tale. If you've got your own HOA horror story, drop it in the comments. Stay safe out there in those perfect little suburbs.